time, there is action at the staging lane. Jim Nichols moving into the near lane from Spring Valley, California. He's going against Don Garlitz of Cessna, Florida. Garlitz, almost a living legend as far as the NHRA Nationals are concerned. A three-time winner. Jim Nichols has never won a big one, but he has been close, and he's had a good season. And it's strictly shootout time right now with Big Daddy. The winner here goes to the Top Fuel Finals. Garlitz in the far lane, Nichols in the near lane. The big crowd all standing, and the red light is shining in Don Garlitz's lane. You won't see that very often, but Don Garlitz has drawn a red light. He left too soon. Perhaps it was the bite of the track, the incredible traction you get here at Raceway Park. Whatever, Don Garlitz has been eliminated by a foul, and thus ends his comeback to racing after his severe accident. But he made it to the semifinals, and he is still tough. Jim Nichols is the winner, and we'll have more in a moment. Here we go with the last of the semifinal runs in the Top Fuel category. Jim Nichols has already won his way into the finals. The winner of this one between Don Prudhomme, moving up to burn his tires, against Brian Budd, who moves into the near lane. Brian Budd was the low qualifier, rolled off the truck a couple of days ago and turned in a 6.66 seconds. Elapsed time is better than 212 miles an hour, and nobody could beat him in the qualifying. And he has made his way to the semifinals. You would think at this juncture, however, Don Prudhomme might enjoy a psychological edge because Bud has not had the experience of Prudhomme nor the winning history. Very ticklish up on that starting line, and both men know it. Literally laden with fatigue. They have struggled and fought their way to this moment. And just a few seconds from now, it's going to be all over for one of them. Prudhomme in the far lane, Bud in the near lane. Red light on Brian Budd. Don Prudhomme is in the finals against Jim Nichols. Bud, realizing he had to get off quick, let it go too quick. He saw the red light himself and shut his equipment off and coasts on through the trap. And Don Prudhomme will be going against Jim Nichols for the Top Fuel Championship here at the Nationals.
The announcer right now is saying, ladies and gentlemen, Don Garlitz, and that's the only introduction he needs. Look at Garlitz. He's already shaking hands, and he hasn't left the starting line. From Cessna, Florida. And believe me, after this win and this new rear-engine dragster, he's the undisputed king. And I think for the fans' sake, he smoked the tires on purpose.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask you anyway. The future of the rear-engine Top Fuel dragster.
Well, I think it's here to stay. I believe that we'll see lots of cars built now because obviously the car is safer. The driver, I ran all day long, never got anything on my helmet or anything. It was just a nice, clean ride. The noise is not objectionable. You're not getting anything on your face. I believe we'll see a lot of cars. I believe this is the beginning of the end of the slingshot as we know it today.
The rear-engine dragster is certainly not a new idea, but it was never successful mainly due to handling problems, and you have absolutely none.
That's right. You notice on the second day I got a little out of shape about halfway down when I ran in an oil slick and had no problem coming out of it, which was a good test. And then the smoking the tires there on that run shows that the car handled very nicely even with the tires loose. So I really don't know why they never have worked before. I think possibly it was a combination of tires and clutch. The things that we have today make it possible, where they didn't have those a few years ago.
Well, you are truly the Big Daddy after this.
This is Carl Olson. Will be on the outside lane here. The car with a white on it, he qualified 29th. His opponent here, Gary Cochran, who qualified 15th, will be in the near lane. There is Carl Olson. Getting all set for the start. Wait a minute, seems to be a problem, and they're pushing away Gary Cochran's car. He has shut off his engine, and now Carl Olson has to run by himself. An easy breeze for Carl Olson, who'll save his engine. And And I believe the problem with Gary Cochran, he changed his engine between the quarterfinals and the semis. He probably had a loose fuel line. A tough break for Gary Cochran, a great break for Carl Olson. And that hand going up shows what I mean. Here we go again. It's Dennis Baca here. It'll be on the outside lane. He qualified second, certainly the favorite here, against Dale Funk, who qualified 28th. Dale will be on the near side. Crowd is up for this one. Baca on the outside, smoking away. There they go. Baca moves up, but Funk is having a problem. He's having engine problems. Easy breeze for Baca. So in the finals here, it'll be Dennis Baca against Carl Olson in the Top Fuel Eliminator.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the roller starts, two of the great National Touring AA fuel dragsters attempting to qualify. Remember, the low winning elapsed time moves into the number 1 position. The low overall elapsed time into the number 2 position. These two machines meet in the finals.
In lane number 1, the car on the right side of the roller starts. Looking from the timing tower will be the car coming up in the right lane, Marvin Schwartz from Clearwater, Florida. Al Sedita, the mechanic on the car. This guy has been at it for many moons. He started with Big Daddy Don Garlitz in 1961, and now he's one of Garlitz's biggest nemesis. They met in the final at Tulsa at the PRA meet. Marvin Schwartz fell in that final run, but he ran 6 elapsed times before Garlitz could take him out. In lane number 1, one of the great drag racers of all time, Marvin Schwartz.
In the tower lane, it's 31-year-old Dick LaHaye, the quiet man, in his 7th low and fuel dragster of his career, 473 cubic inches of Sid Waterman Chrysler.
Schwartz in lane number 1 with a 520-inch Dodge on his burnout. And now comes LaHaye, tower lane. Do you believe 520 cubic inches on a 3/4-inch arm on Marvin Schwartz's machine in lane 1? If you don't understand drag racing paraphernalia or drag racing terminology, the 520-inch arm means that he has a big, or the 3/4-inch arm means that he has a big crank in that machine, 3/4-inch extra lift on it, and he is really putting out some cubic inches that in conversion figure out to be tremendous horsepower. So he should have probably 2,200 horsepower to work with on that machine in lane 1, Ben.
That is the biggest engine in drag racing, Billy. There's only 2 other people running that engine, and Marvin Schwartz is running it in the dragster. Barry Setzer runs it in a funny car.
Marvin sitting down there very patiently waiting for Dick LaHaye, tower lane, to back up. LaHaye looked like he tried to straddle the oil streak tower lane on the burnout. He is now ready. Dick LaHaye, tower lane, Marvin Schwartz, spectator lane.
And look at the way that Marvin Schwartz has those wheels cantered in, Billy. We don't see very many people that try that configuration on a dragster. Marvin does things differently. And on green, Marvin makes the move. He's got one open on LaHaye. LaHaye is after him, straddling the oil at the finish line. Marvin Schwartz, spectator lane.
Marvin Schwartz in the spectator lane with the quickest time so far at 6:42. 6:42, 225 miles an hour for Schwartz in the spectator lane.
Starting right out with the nitromethane burning monsters, the Top Fuel Eliminators, and Carl Olson of El Toro, California, against Sarge Arciero of Broomall, Pennsylvania. Should be a good matchup there.
Certainly should. This is Sarge Arciero. The car is called the Jade Grenade, and one of the finest racers from the East Coast area. Of course, Carl Olson, a former Winter Nationals champion, and really one of the top racers from throughout the West Coast, is here at the Spring Nationals trying to annex another NHRA national title.
Carl Olson's had a very successful campaign as a Top Fuel.
Yes, he has. He drives for his partner Mike Cool, the team of Cool and Olson. They won the Winter Nationals. They won the famed Bakersfield March Meet, which is one of the more spectacular Top Fuel Eliminator races throughout the country. Sarge Arciero, a very capable driver. They've had their share of bad luck, ups and downs throughout their career. But right now, they're the first race in the first round of Top Fuel Eliminator.
We're starting to stage very carefully. We'll explain the staging situation, and they're off, and it looks like a pretty good matchup for the first race of the afternoon.
Very close race at this point, as you can see, crossing the finish line. It's Carl Olson there first.
Time of 6.28.
Our next pair pits a fellow from Enid, Oklahoma, Mike Wagner. He's doing his burnout right now, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And an Ohio resident, Paul Longenecker from Arcanum.
What do these engines produce as far as horsepower is concerned?
Ted, you would probably be accurate in saying anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 horsepower come from these nitromethane burning and supercharged dragsters. The engines now with cubic inch displacements nearing 500 cubic inches. Mike Wagner and Paul Longenecker.
Again, a very careful stage and a good start. And the winner, Mike Wagner, a time of 6.34, 225 miles an hour. Now our next matchup, John Wiebe of Newton, Kansas. He'll be in the left lane against Ronnie Martin of Arlington, Texas. John Wiebe is the defending champion in Top Fuel.
Yes, he is. He won it all here 1 year ago, defeating Don Garlitz in the final run. John Wiebe hails from Newton, Kansas, a professional drag racer. The car powered by the Donovan engine. There are 3 specialty engines that are in use today. Here we see a burnout in slow motion. You can see the tires grow. The purpose of the burnout to warm the tires, to get them as soft as possible, and also as clean as possible, to provide them with the traction necessary to propel these cars through the quarter mile. Here's the staging sequence. Both cars pre-staged, now staged. Ronnie Martin, you saw a shot of him. John Wiebe hesitating momentarily there.
Losing something.
And
very
what
close
a close race. 6:59 losing for Ronnie Martin. 6:62 the winning time for John Wiebe. And here in slow motion, we'll talk about how you can go slower and yet win the race. You saw the smoke coming up from the tires of Ronnie Martin's. That means he's losing time as he goes down that quarter mile. And John Wiebe playing catch-up and caught him.
Our next race, Herm Peterson of Paul's Bowl, Washington. He'll be in the right lane against Dick LaHaye of DeWitt, Michigan.
This is a shot of LaHaye, and here is Herm Peterson. You see how the drivers are encased in this roll cage, a protective cage built around the drivers. They're staging, of course, all the cars doing burnouts and picking up the action as they leave the starting line. Dick LaHaye and Herm Peterson. Looked like LaHaye had the whole shot or the jump off the line.
Very
Herm
close.
Peterson, very close.
Time of 6:30, winning time for Herm Peterson.
Herm Peterson, of course, on the comeback trail after a very severe accident a year ago. He is probably to drag racing what Salt Walther is to championship car racing. Here you see exactly how close it was. Herm Peterson just barely nipping him. That line across the left edge of your screen is the finish line.
This matchup should be a fine one. Gary Beck of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, against Flip Schofield of Escondido, California.
Gary Beck, the national champion for 2 years in a row. He is the current national champion. He won the Winter Nationals race and was runner-up at the recent Gator Nationals thus far in 1974, and is probably the hottest thing going in the Top Fuel racing right now. Flip Schofield, another fine driver from California, qualified here at this 10th annual Spring Nationals.
I would say he lost a lot of traction there, Dave. A lot of smoke coming up as Gary Beck takes it with a time of 6.09, 230 miles an hour.
At 6:09, the lowest time thus far, is our next pair coming into the burnout area. We see this is Robert Struckness from Minot, North Dakota. North Dakota is not necessarily the hotbed of Top Fuel racing, but Robert Struckness doing a fine job qualifying into this field. Here we see Struckness, and it looks like starter Buster Couch pointing at something, calling a crewman over, and he gives the sign to cut it off to Robert Struckness. He pulls the fuel shutoff, which is used to shut these engines off, and a very dejected and unhappy Robert Struckness starts to head out of the car as Jim Booker from Westchester, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati, leaves the line with his Chevrolet-powered car. Here's Struckness.
A very dejected man, too, as Jim Booker takes a slow run down the track. Wonder what the problem could have been, Dave.
It could be something coming out of the engine, either oil or water, that would have gotten onto the track underneath the tires. Here is the only female driver in Top Fuel competition today. This is Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney from Mount Clemens, Michigan, and qualified into this field.
She'll be matched against Grant Stoms of Edison, New Jersey.
Stoms is another one of those fine East Coast racers that you really don't hear a lot about in some cases, but certainly has made his name for himself on the East Coast and has done a fine job getting into this 16-car field at the 10th Annual Spring Nationals. Shirley Muldowney competed here a year ago with a funny car. She She is now converted over to the Top Fuel dragster. Here you see Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney, the only woman holding a competition license to drive a Top Fuel dragster.
And driving a pink one, too. Watching the staging lights very carefully, they edge their cars into position, and they're off. And it looks like Stoms by a wide margin.
Excellent run for Stoms at a 6:17, 233 miles an hour. Here we have an interesting matchup. In the left-hand lane, you see him right there, is Clayton Harris. This is his first race since an accident at the Grand Nationals a year ago. He was not driving a car. He just slipped and fell and broke his leg. He had complications. This is the first time he's been back in competition. He's racing against Dave Settles, the driver for the Candies and Hughes team that won the race there and also won the recent Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida. But Clayton Harris back on the comeback trail. Right now, let's go down in the staging lanes and Ted Mullins.
Shirley, I think the first question is, are you a women's liver?
Yeah, Ted, I'd have to be being the only gal in this game.
Did they give you some rough times back in the pit there?
Not today. Years ago, they used to.
How did you get started in drag racing?
Heavy street racing on the streets about 16 years ago.
And then you advanced to funny cars, I believe, last year, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I went to gas dragsters first, then a dual-engine car, and then into the fuel-burning funny car. I had a lot of success the first year. And I took the test for the fuel-powered digger and got that license last year and came along to the new car this year.
It must give you quite a feeling of accomplishment to know you're the only licensed woman to drive a Top Fuel.
Yeah, because I told that to a friend of mine, Pete Robinson. He's gone now, but I told him someday I'd be the first, and I'd be the first to go 200, 225, and I did so, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Do you worry about anybody breaking your time?
No, I think it'll be a little while before you see another gal.
In the first semifinal, we'll match Garlitz, the Florida swamp rat from Sefner, and a Fountain Valley, California boy with the colorful name of Rick Ramsey. Watch Garlitz's right rear tire. That soft Goodyear has only 5.5 pounds pressure in it. Look at it grow as he burns it off. Now it's Ramsey's turn. He's got a tough row to hoe, coming up against the best in the business. Garlitz, a three-time winner here at Pomona, is looking to make it 4. Now they go to the staging area, the critical part. The two left-hand lights set the stage light. They must be obstructed, and the right-hand light is the one that starts the clock. Now Garlitz is about ready to move into the stage. Ramsey's car, the top of the screen, blocks the lights. He's staged. Now Garlitz is staged, and they wait now for the signal to go. It's Big Daddy, clear and fast, away from Ramsey. Over the line with the parachute pulling him to a soft stop. The clock said 6.192 seconds, his speed, a phenomenal 229 flat to move into the finals. Garlitz is from Florida, but everything on his car except his homemade chassis is produced in California. The second semifinal will match red-bearded Dave Settles of Houma, Louisiana, and Herm Peterson of Poulsboro, Washington. And these are the $30,000 to $50,000 cars, not including their travel rigs. The collective value of the entire field here at Pomona figures to be more than that of an Indy garage area. And as for return on investment, today's purse is $261,350. $13,500 in Top Fuel, $4,500 for the runner. Now let's watch this tire grow to maturity. And in a glimpse, you can see the stresses that the tires undergo during the burnout process. This long California day has been an extremely challenging one for the crews and the drivers. First of all, the weather, which started out warm and sunny, has been changing all day long. It's now cool. This means engine changing. And with the track conditioning changing, the tire pressures and clutch settings have to be revamped. Everything must be tailored to the conditions of the moment. Side by side, ready to go. Remember, the winner gets a shot at Garlitz in the final, and it settles. The Cajun gets a shot at Big Daddy. Winning speed, 211.26 miles an hour. Now here's a look at the finish in slow motion. Every power stroke of the engine can be seen pulsing out of the exhaust. Old Redbeard goes against Big Daddy in the finals. We'll see that in a minute.
And it's James Warren in the near lane against Frank Bradley. Two of the best West Coast drivers traveling all the way to Gainesville, Florida to meet here in the semifinals. A great race as James Warren pulls it out in the last eighth of a mile. As you can see, just a car length separating them at the finish. Warren recording a 6.20 second elapsed time at over 239 miles an hour. In the near lane, the Chevrolet-powered dragster of Jim Booker against Marvin Graham. Graham with the big lead. And something lets go, and it's Jim Booker with the win into the finals, 6.40 seconds. Picking up the action in round number 2, Tony Serrallo from the Bronx, New York, against Lee Weller from Westminster, Maryland, driving Jim and Allison Lee's Top Fuel dragster. The burnouts completed on both cars, approaching the starting line. Tony Serrallo in the near lane, Lee Weller in the far lane. Weller with a big lead as Serrallo up in smoke. Lee Weller, your winner, 6.27 seconds, 229 miles an hour. Advancing into the semifinals, Jim and Allison Lee, Lee Weller up. Jeb Allen, Santa Rosa, California. His competition, Ron Atterbury from San Jose, California. Here's a burnout in slow motion, the tires growing due to the centrifugal force, and also the smoke coming off of them as they begin to heat up and get very hot. All the cars in Top Fuel Eliminator doing the burnouts to heat the rubber compound used in these 17, 18-inch wide slicks. Racing tires built specifically for drag racing. At the age of 18, Jeb Allen was the winner in this event, finished runner-up in Top Fuel here a year ago. Coming into the staging beam, both cars pre-staged. Now inching into that light beam across the starting line, indicates their stage. The green comes on. And Jeb Allen pulling an easy victory as Ron Atterbury having problems. Allen, low elapsed time thus far in eliminations, 5.99 seconds, 223 miles an hour. That took him just under 6 seconds to cover 1,320 feet from a standing start. The defending world champion, Richard Tharp, driving the Candies and Hughes dragster. Tharp hailing from Dallas, Texas. The team of Candies and Hughes from Houma, Louisiana. Competition for Tharp, Grant Stoms. Stoms actually from East Brunswick, New Jersey, not more than 5 miles away from Raceway Park, located near Englishtown. Burnouts completed. Both cars leave the line together. Stoms with problems, Tharp with the win. 6.03 seconds at 243 miles an hour for Tharp. Here we see the problems with Grant Stoms as a slight fire erupts. You'll see it right behind the parachute. There it comes. Out of the engine of Grant Stoms, indicating a lot of motor problems and a lot of oil on the racetrack. This race plagued thus far with breakage problems throughout both first and second round racing. This is Pat Dakin. Dakin out of the state of Ohio to be pitted against Shirley Muldowney, winner of the Spring Nationals. Muldowney, low qualifier here, 5.77 seconds, but she has not been close to it as track conditions have changed considerably from the day and night qualifying for the past 2 days. A close race. And Shirley Muldowney, by about a half a car length, takes the victory over Pat Dakin, 6.05 seconds, 243 miles an hour. And here we see it. They leave the starting line together. Shirley beginning to haze the tire. She backpedals beautifully, gets back into it, and holds on for the victory over Pat Dakin, as you can see, by about a half a car length. Shirley Muldowney, a very tired lady, as the heat and humidity taking its toll on these drivers.
Down now to the round of 4. Rob Bruins and Big Daddy Garlitz, the young lion and the old lion, for supremacy in the world finals of hot rod racing. Center stage. They're ready. They're gone. It is Bruins' turn this time. Rob Bruins defeats Big Daddy Don Garlitz. Garlitz in the semifinal round in the time of 6.08 seconds. A big victory for the Washington youngster and a very happy crew. The other semifinal round, Richard Tharp taking on Gary Beck. Tharp from Dallas, Texas. Beck, former Canadian, now lives in El Toro, California. There they go.
Oh, and Richard Tharp is way out of shape. Almost got across the center line.
What happened?
Looked like he broke traction with one tire and it drove the car sideways.
Let's take a look at it again. Has he a reputation for doing this, Carl?
Yes, as a matter of fact, he always puts the car right on the ragged edge, but never seems to go over.
The team of Frazier and Abbott from Denver, Colorado. This is the semifinals of Top Fuel Racing. Johnny Abbott, the driver. His competition is Bill Pryor, the team of Naramore and Pryor. As we watch the Christmas tree, both cars inching into the staging beams. You're seeing the starting line lights, just the driver sees it, sitting inside that long, slender missile that runs over 245 miles an hour. A lot of concentration needed here as the start is all important. Pryor off to the lead as Abbott smoking the tires. Pryor uses up a good bit of his lane, but he stays ahead and moves into the finals. Bill Pryor, 6.56 seconds. His speed only 215 miles an hour. Abbott, a valiant effort after smoking the tires, the 669 at 225. Once again, let's go to Steve.
Very happy, Bill Pryor. This means your first ever final round appearance at an NHRA national event.
That's right, Steve. Very happy to be here, too.
You're not pleased with the performance, I don't think, though. Looks like you had a lot of problems.
No, I'm not pleased with that at all. I mean, the thing shook really bad when it left the starting line. My only savior was him smoking the tires and having problems, too.
Okay, in just a second here, we're going to determine who races you in the final round of the Gator Nationals. They're on the line. David.
Steve, obviously that left-hand lane creating problems for whoever happens to be there. And this time it is the reigning world champion, Kelly Brown. He is racing Rob Bruins. Bruins has recorded with Gaines Markley's car the lowest elapsed time of eliminations in the first round at 5.93 seconds. Kelly Brown never to be counted out, driving for the team of Diaz and Schultz, the over-the-hill gang, switching cars for this 79 season. And Bruins breaks something off the starting line. Kelly Brown, in another masterful driving job, keeps it between the guardrail and the center line to take the win. Let's watch again. You see instant smoke coming off the car. The tires of Kelly Brown. Rob Bruins already coming to a stop as he leaves the starting line and something breaks.